Hey guys, Tarke here, and this is going to be my attempted final build guide of my Immolate Tornado Shot Slayer. We're going to run a bunch of maps with a few different setups, some more budget than others. But before we get into it, I just want to quickly explain how the build works, because some people get a little bit confused by this. It is a Immolate Tornado Shot build, using Thief's Torment and Mind over Matter. Okay, let's just do one map so you understand how it works. So the whole point of this build is to attack rapidly with a bunch of additional projectiles. We have additional projectile on my quiver, Helm, Dying Sun, and we use Tornado Shot. We have Pierce, and we attack at things. When things get ignited, they take a bunch of bonus damage from Immolate. Seems good. Now, I've purposely set my character up for full map clear. I'm not using a Headhunter, but I am using an Inspired Learning, so if you see any buffs coming up... Wow, nice density, GG. If you see any buffs coming up from enemies, that's where they are coming from. The strengths and weaknesses of this build. Because I do use Thief's Torment, I have the Volpact effect in a ring slot, while still maintaining my leech from Slayer, having that constantly full HP refill, and also having positive regen. This means that if you are someone who is interested in something like, I don't know, Uberlab, you can have the Volpact playstyle without all of the downsides. Now, you do have to sacrifice 2 ring slots, which mean my build has a lot less damage than it could have from, say, 2 perfect steel rings or opals. But as you can see for map clear, it is perfectly fine. This is also a character which is designed to optimize very well with the support, but it is not necessary. However, if you do manage to play this in duo with a support character, the effectiveness of this build absolutely skyrockets. It can single target, and I have cleared all bosses up to tier 15. I haven't attempted Guardians on this character because I'm not interested in Guardians, and I've done all of the Breach Lords up to Chayula. So the single target is there, you can do stuff with it, however I personally would much rather focus on pure mapping, and I actually skip bosses in nearly all circumstances. I won't do the Gorge map boss, but I will do a Shaped Shore later, and you can see how the boss clear works on that. Now, this is also with a Lionized Glare. People who know me know that this build can also function with a Quill Rain, and I will do the next Gorge with a Quill Rain. Now, you say, hang on, Quill Rain, doesn't it have 40% less attack damage on it? Yes, it does, 40% less weapon damage. Because of the way this build works, it still works perfectly fine without it. Obviously, the DPS is lower, however, for just pure map clear, if that's all you're interested in, it still works perfectly fine, and some people actually prefer using the Quill Rain to the Lionize. You only really notice the Lionize when it comes against bossing, and also the Lionize does make you a little bit tankier because it has a bunch of flat mana on it, and again, this is a mind over matter build. But for anyone out there who's missing the Explosive Arrow playstyle, you can replicate it quite easily with a Quill Rain. Also, let's please not get frozen on this reduced blast charges map. Feels bad, man. The Harbies take a little bit longer with the Quill Rain, obviously, because it's a Quill Rain, but you can see it's fairly passable. Now, you're going, okay, you're a non-crit build using a Quill Rain. How are you igniting enemies? I have 15% chance to ignite passively on the tree, and again, Immolate gives us bonus damage against ignited enemies. And I have a bunch of jewels which also have a chance to ignite on them. You can get up to 5% chance to ignite on a jewel. And depending on how many jewel slots you run through it, you can quite easily get your chance to ignite up. This is currently with a fairly comfortable 30% chance to ignite. If you can fit flammability into your setup, you can also get another 14% off that. You can get it a little bit higher with curse effectiveness, etc. But it's actually quite easy to achieve a fairly comfortable 30 to 50% chance to ignite without using the chance to ignite gem. Now, the chance to ignite gem is also a more multiplier, so you can choose to run it to smooth out the build even more and get a fairly sizable multi out, but I'm currently not running it. I'm getting my Pierce from my chest, which is Lionized Vision. However, the Pierce from the chest is not needed, but you do want some Pierce. I would say you want a minimum of 1 Pierce for this build to feel smooth, and I'll go through the different options of doing that later. But yeah, so even with a pretty memey setup using the Quill Rain, you can see that the map clear is pretty solid on it. And if you play this with a support, the map clear is very solid with the Quill Rain, and what I'd recommend to most people. I'll now do a Shaped Shore with my Lionize, so you can see what the boss damage is like on it. And again, this character is not designed for bossing, but you can boss perfectly fine. Shaped Shore. So we'll throw Beyond on it, just make it a little bit more interesting. Now, this is a character that I'm currently trying to push, so hopefully I don't rip, and again, this is in hardcore. Why am I a Slayer is probably the next question that some of you have after, okay, I see how the build kind of works. The Slayer gives quite a few nice quality of life things. It doesn't excel at anything better than other ascendancies, but I feel like it's probably the best option for hardcore because of the constantly moving leech rate, meaning I'm always on full HP. It makes the build feel a lot smoother, it makes the build feel a lot safer. The cull helps the single target quite substantially, and also having the onslaught means I don't need to try and fit onslaught into a weird herald setup or running a onslaught flask. So you get a nice mixture of damage from the 20% more damage, the cull, the onslaughts, survivability, and just raw movement speed. So that's why it's my all-around favorite. Springs, by the way, feels good, man. I pick up all the loot at the end of this map. Just remind me, well, I say remind me. Let's just hope that I don't forget to do it after I'm done recording this video. Let's sort of just beeline towards the boss now. I'll go through the gearing, budget options, different ascendancy options, so on and so forth. One thing you can do if you play in softcore and you care only about zoom, gotta go fast action and nothing else, is you can go for either Pathfinder or Raider. You could do Berserker, you could do Silence. To be honest, perfectly honest, you could do anything. But yeah, that's what the single target looks like. Not the best, not the worst, but definitely good enough for the setup I currently have. And also one small fun fact before we get into it, if you look at the Path of Building numbers, we apparently do 13k damage with our Tornado Shot. Path of Building isn't always everything, guys. Alright, let's get into the gear and the links. So as I mentioned, I am a Tornado Shot Immolate build, and the core links are Tornado Shot, GMP, Immolate. You then go for elemental damage with attacks, that is your set 4 link. Then damage on full life, since again we are a Slayer and our life is always at full, even when using effects such as Blood Rage. And then for your final link, you can pick between 5 penetration, chance to ignite if you feel like your ignite chance isn't strong enough, or pierce. Those would be the main go-to ones I would recommend. You do not need to use a Lionized Vision. I use Lionized Vision because it gives me a 7 link. I just 6 linked it by chance. I was using just a corrupted 6 link up until I believe 91 or 92 without the Pierce gem. I was just using this unique jewel, Poacher's Aim, to get my 1 Pierce. If you don't want to use the jewel, you don't want to use the gem, you don't want to use the chest piece, you can also use Voidwalker Boots, which give you phasing if you've killed recently, and Pierce while you have phasing. You can alternatively play a Scion and spec into Deadeye and get your Pierce there. But to be perfectly honest, playing with just the 2 Pierce, just the 1 Pierce from the unique jewel felt good enough to me for the vast majority of the play session. So alternate chest pieces, if you have a 6-link bow, would be either any rare of your choosing, basically any unique that you want, but I would recommend Combs. We have an effective 7k-ish life with my life plus Mind Over Matter. You can drop the Mind Over Matter package, but personally I would not recommend it, and the synergy with Thief's Torment is just too strong. The Helm Enchant for this build is very important. 2 secondary Tornado Shot projectiles gives each Tornado Shot explosion 2 extra projectiles on the end. When you factor in the fact that we get Dying Sun, we get additional arrow on quiver, it's very, very crucial to the build. You can play without it. I played with a just +1 cheap enchant I picked up, but you can use whatever. Devoto's Devotion is, in my opinion, the best Helm option for map clear. As I've already stated, I've designed this character around map clear. Now, for the bows, either Lionize or Quill Rain, as I showed you earlier. Lionize is the best go-to solo option, so for the vast majority of you, that's what you want to go for. And if you can get it with +1 corruption, you are luckier than I am. They are very hard to purchase because it's a very odd thing for people to corrupt. And I've gone through many, many Lionize on the hardcore ladder with no luck so far. Now, I do have the Rampage effect in my build. I'm getting Rampage from Null and Void. You do not need to use these gloves. These gloves are very expensive. They are by no means necessary. I'm just using them because I've been playing this character for a very long time. You can also get the Rampage effect on a belt called Bisco's Leash. as a fairly budget option, and this is what I did up until yesterday because I bought this on stream yesterday. Also, if you cannot afford the Signal Fire gives you up to 35% of physical damage as extra fire damage with the +1 arrow corrupt, which is very, very important. You can just use a +1 Black Gleam, which is again what I used up until yesterday, and again this is a level 96 character in hardcore, so it definitely works perfectly fine. +1 arrow is very important. I would recommend +1 arrow over basically anything else. If you're using the Quill Rain, Black Gleam is less important and Signal Fire is less important because the Quill Rain has really no flat fizz on it. Avatar fire conversion is obviously more important when you're using your full DPS bow, but for the people who are playing with support or with good enough gear that they can use the Quill Rain, you can use basically any corrupted quiver of your choice. Now, as previously mentioned, I'm using Thieves as my go-to ring. It gives me the life gain on hit, the mana gain on hit. It gives me up to 35 all resistance if you have a perfect one. It also gives me 50% reduced effective curses on you. This is a very powerful defensive and offensive modifier. I don't need to run a curse removal flask, which means I can be very greedy with unique flasks. And it also means that I can be very greedy with my uniques because my Ellie weakness cap is much lower than the average player. With Thief's Torment, you only need 92% resistance to be capped, meaning I can go crazy with all the uniques that you're seeing, because I currently only have resists on 1, 2, 3 pieces. Okay. Now, for the belt, it's not the best belt, but it has life, it has the resist I need, it has elemental damage with attacks. As previously mentioned, if you can't afford the Rampage gloves, you can use Bisco's leash. Again, Rampage is just very nice. It also gives you some quantity. I've designed this character to farm maps. We go in quantity, and as such, we are using Bisco's collar. If you don't like using Bisco's collar, if you don't believe in the quantity memes, you can instead use a Zoph's Blood amulet. If you use Zoph's Blood, you don't need to take Avatar Fire on the tree, meaning you can save up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 skill points, which you can distribute elsewhere. So it is a very valid option and probably a pretty good option for bossing. Alternatively, you can just use Nahamatiki as a very budget option because it gives you life, damage, a little bit of resists. Something I often swap in for just if I'm doing Breach Laws or something, and the Biscos will have no effect. If you don't want to use the Thieves, if that is too memey for your liking, these are your options. Either just go for a solid steel ring with a line I set up, or a pretty GG opal, if you can get that. Just showing off a little bit here. Alternatively, Sibyl's Lament. This build is completely fine on Reflect up to about 3 or 4 mobs. Don't run Reflect maps. My support nearly killed me yesterday by accidentally putting a Reflect map in. I got to kill about 5 or 6 packs before I noticed. It sort of works, but don't run Reflect maps with this build. If you would like to run Reflect maps, you have to use a Sibyl's or be playing a Scion. You can also use a Essence Worm if you still want to stay as Mind Over Matter and not go Thief's Torment, in which case I'd recommend using Anger. If you are very greedy, you could also run Anger with a Thief's, but then it makes your Mind Over Matter much less effective because you're cutting your mana in half, and already there's a quite big imbalance between our mana and our life total. As previously mentioned, Flammability is another source of getting chance to ignite and is a very large DPS option. If you play completely solo, I would also highly recommend investing in a pair of Curse Ellie Weakness gloves if you can afford them. I mostly play with support, so he applies my curses, so that's why I can get away with running these bad boys. So, other Helm options if you don't like using a Devotos. The absolute best would be a Gull, but you'd need a Gull with the Helm Enchant, which is near impossible to get, but if you have one, lucky you. Alternatively, just buy up a cheap base and then throw a few essences in there. I bought this base at something like 2050C early on when there wasn't that much hype around Tornado Shot, and then just spammed essences and hit lucky. I've bought and sold a few of these at like 200-300C in hardcore, but these are more solid options if you're struggling with your resists or your life total. Again, boots, resists are very important. These are my two-tone boots. You can also use something like this. Basically, you just want as many resists as possible if you're going very unique heavy, or just go for whatever unique boots if you're having a more even distribution of gear. Unique jewels, which are very powerful with this build. Mantra of Flames is one people like to mention. I personally would rather just have chance to ignite, life, and resist because it smooths out the build. You can run this if you stack up a bunch of buffs. Poacher's Aim if you need the pierce. inspired learning as I am for the Headhunter style effect, or just the go-to life ignite damage jewel. Now, to show you my current jewels, I have one inspired learning here. This is my GG Water Resistances jewel. Life double res, very solid. And then I also have just life resist chance to ignite everywhere else. And again, you can get up to 5% chance to ignite on a jewel. So my build currently has 30% chance to ignite, which is enough for the build to feel smooth. Under 30% chance to ignite, you will struggle a little bit. If you're doing this completely budget, if you're doing an SSF style option, I would recommend maybe not going Slayer and instead playing either Pathfinder or Scion. Pathfinder gets 20% chance to ignite. It also gets a bunch of pen, quality of life, and movement speed, so a very solid option. Makes the build feel very smooth without having very specific jewels. Alternatively, you could also go Raider if you play Softcore, and you just want to go zoom, gotta go fast. Avatar of Fire, Avatar of Slaughter, Avatar of the Veil. Slayer is my preferred option for hardcore. And then for Scion players out there, I would recommend one of the three. Deadeye gives you +2 Pierce, meaning you don't need Pierce anywhere else. One additional projectile, which is very powerful. Elementalist gives you 50% reduced reflect damage taken, meaning you could then run reflect maps. It also gives you some penetration and conflux. Conflux gives you 6 seconds of shock, ignite, chill. This is very powerful because it smooths out your chance to ignite. It also gives you some shock, which is extra damage. Alternatively, and interestingly, you can also use Guardian. This is obviously more powerful. You can play in group support scenarios because you and nearby party members share your power, frenzy, endurance charges. But it gives you 25% reduced effective curses on you. This comboed with the Thief's Torment gives you 75% reduced curse effect on you, meaning you can ignore most curses completely. It makes any weakness res capping very easy. It also gives you some attack and movement speed, which smooths out the build. This is what your base skill tree should look like. I've gone for Acro, Phase Acro, because I like Acro and Phase Acro. You don't need to run them. You also don't need these nodes here, but they are required to activate Inspired Learning. If you are doing this at a low level, I would say your core skill tree, you want to come down this way, pick up Primeval Force, again going through the chance to ignite first, grab Acro, and then you do the long haul up here, picking up life, grab EO, grab Mom, grab Avatar of Fire, come through this way. This is kind of like your core base tree. Quick Step isn't mandatory. I very much like it. It makes the build feel smoother, and I'm just caring about mapping and nothing else. For Bandits, I went for the 2 skill points, but I did actually play Crate for quite a long time, because Crate gives you more attack, cast, movement speed, and dodge. Quick Step is better than Crate, so if you're going for one or the other, go for Quick Step. But if you want to go for both for mapping, you can go for both for mapping. Again, path of building numbers lie to you. This build is completely fine. Don't ask me what my tooltip is. The reason why I take these 5 points over these 5 points, again, because I have the Varpact effect without losing all my regen, I get 1.6% regen, 1.8% regen coming this way. I also get a bunch of flat life. These 5 points, 5,442 life, versus these 5 points. The difference is roughly 40 flat HP, but I get 1.8% regen, which smooths out the build. You'll notice this a lot if you do any Uber Lab farming. So, yeah, that's basically the core concept. Ascendancy options are Scion, Slayer, Raider, or Pathfinder. Your base tree will look something like this. If you use Zoth's Blood, you can cut this section off the top. Now let's quickly talk about the leveling process and things you can do to make the leveling process a little bit smoother. As always, this is patch 3.0, so Sunder is the recommended leveling skill of choice. But if you do wish to level this as bows, as I did, start off just with the good old Silver Branch. Silver Branch is Bay, Silver Branch is Life. Then move into Stormcloud and go for a pure Lightning Elemental focus. Again, if you're not leveling with Sunder, I actually recommend leveling with Shrapnel Shot. 2 collateral damage jewels give you 100% chance to deal double damage on the cone. This means that you one-shot basically all of the bosses. It's why I recommend Shrapnel Shot over LA or Barrage these days. It's just a decent option. Also, if like me, you mostly play duo and you play mostly duo with support, this is what we did to make the bossing very easy for us when I was basically carrying one player's damage, because obviously he didn't provide very much with his like SRS or whatever it was at the time for leveling. Upgrade the Stormcloud into a Tempest. And again, just be stacking flat lightning everywhere you can, because Tempest has 100% increased lightning damage. If you don't want to go for the pure elemental route, you could just try and pick up a decent fizz bow. If you look this late into the league especially, you can get very nice bows like this for leveling. Tabula Rasa, if you can get +1 level of socketed gems, it makes stuff like added lightning, added cold scale harder. Again, the way that you do level these characters is by having just all the flat elemental gems in there. If you don't level Shrapnel Shot, I'd recommend running a 6-link Barrage in your Tabula, and then a 4-link either Split Arrow or Lightning Arrow in, a random 4-link somewhere. You can also run Cloak of Flame because it does have some chance to ignite. This is a very budget option for the Immolate setup, but it's also something which enables Immolate early. I did not level with Immolate. I leveled entirely Shrapnel Shot normal damage, and I transitioned into my Immolate setup when I could then equip my +2 Tornado Shot Helm, and then fully transitioned over to Tornado Shot around about level 67-ish, and I've been Tornado Shot ever since. Again, good leveling boots, Wanderlust no surprise, but if you're doing the lightning memes, Wake of Destruction are very solid. I can also highly recommend Aznath's Gentle Touch, because they give you Curse, enemies with level 10 Temptings on hit, which is a pretty nice pickup item. Goldrim goes without saying. Skullhead is a pretty solid helm just for any Mom build starting out early, gives you life mana and some resistances. Curry Ward, again, just a solid leveling option, gives you some movement speed, some proj damage, and some much needed stats early on. For good leveling belts, Horrendous Blazon gives you all stats, gives you a little bit of res, and increased flask effect duration to make sure Quicksilver's last much longer. Belt of the Deceiver, it's just an option if you want to run it. You can also run Prison Weave for a bunch of elemental damages. The flask that I have in my build, since I just realized I think I forgot to mention that, I run a Forbidden Taste because I have loads of regen, and it doesn't degen my health at all. Well, okay, slightly, but it's a 100% heal. It's just my oh shit button. Dying Sun makes the build work because additional projectiles are kind of good in a traditional projectile build. Wise Oak for fire penetration, and I run just a single Jade Flask of heat because I need freeze removal somewhere in my gear, and then a Quicksilver with movement speed. If you're not Avatar of Fire, I would recommend Itziri's Promise, since it just gives you a bunch of damage, it gives you a bunch of Chaos Res. Even with Avatar of Fire, Taste of Hate does still work for you. It's a very nice defensive flask, and it does give you some damage, since it gives you a bunch of extra cold, and then it converts 50% of the cold to fire. So you will get some DPS from a Taste of Hate. You can alternatively go for a Rumi's Concoction if you drop Acro, if you're using Cool Rain with a +1 arrow rearguard quiver for more block chance there. You can use an Overflowing Chalice for just better flask of management. And I do highly recommend a Quartz Flask, which is another reason why I use the Forbidden Taste. Since our movement skill is tied down to Blink Arrow and this character isn't a raider, if you get in a very bad situation, you can use this full heal and run out of anything. But yes, this is my completed Immolate guide, so you have all the resources here, so you no longer need to ask me. But if you do have any questions, then you can catch me on stream every day and just leave your stuff down below. I'm Tarke, have a good day, keep playing bow builds, bye-bye.